So then it's just sort of, dude, man, Black Mammoth.
Yeah.
Let's go, buddy. So, I want to talk a little bit about Black Mammoth. And one of the things I was so confused when we first started talking, like modern family office. And I think family office, I'm like, okay, well, I deal with a lot of family offices when we talk about multifamily investment. They're always trying to find a good LP, and LP partnerships are usually great when you find a family office. And then we start talking, I'm like, you're like, but it's a modern family office. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, does it mean that it has like different kind of paint on the wall? We're going with like a pewter gray, not a beige. Like, what is a modern family office versus a family office as we know it
Yeah,
today?
absolutely. As we know, a family office currently, it's typically someone or a firm that is taking care of the entire family's investments. Usually it's investment focused, right? So just like you had said, they're looking for LPs, GPs. Going to a family office is awesome. It's all right there. They can move their money where they want. A traditional family office is typically those that have been derived from a family going, hey, I need an attorney. I need an accountant. I need someone to do lending. I need someone to buy and sell stuff for us, run our everyday financials. And that's where they started. They've grown into this more asset management focused. And we say modern family office because we want to take the old school traditional model and have it scalable for everyday business owners, as opposed to those who are worth 25 million or more, because there's not a lot of us like that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is your version of modern is really bringing the old and making it new again.
Yep. Yep.
Interesting. So it's hard to think about that as for a lot of people when you think about outsourcing the most personal of personal things into a different company. And I think that all goes down to number one, starting off with values. And so I know your approach is on a holistic approach, family oriented. Talk a little bit about what these key elements mean to you, and why would they be important to somebody who's looking into the idea of outsourcing into a family office, a modern family office.
The most near and dear thing to our heart is money. Right or wrong, I think it's wrong, but right or wrong, money is the one thing that we hold very close to our chest, right? We will talk about our legal issues, we'll talk about our health issues with people, but our money is something we don't talk about. And so in order to be able to have someone open up and trust you, you have to be on a relationship basis that is closer than most of their best friends. And that takes a lot to get through. But a lot of it comes down to having the right money mindset and helping them understand that the money conversation needs to be had and is not as scary as they think. Because if you look out in the media and everything, it's usually someone telling, hey, stop buying that Starbucks, it's terrible for you. And it just shuns them, puts people into a shell. We try to do the opposite. We try to crack that shell and let you know that your decisions that bring you joy matter the most over what the media is trying to tell you to do.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we're told as a society that the things that we're doing every day is wrong. And so the first thing you do is to, kind of hide in the back and do it anyways. And I mean, at the gym, a lot of times, going out for pizza is a bad idea. But you know what? Guess what? After a tournament, we're all going for pizza, man. Like it just happened this weekend. We had a big event, a big jiu-jitsu tournament. Everybody did well. And afterwards we had lasagna. And obviously lasagna is not, on the docket normally, but every now and then, not a bad idea.
Right. It's a journey, right? You're on a fitness journey or jiu-jitsu journey. It doesn't end at some point. You're not just stopping, right? And so when you're on a journey, there's going to be times where you're like, you know what? That pizza does sound good. Or those clothes, that purse, that wallet, that car I wanted really sounds awesome. Let me get it. That's okay. That's part of your journey. That's completely the way it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you did mention something about a lot of times people money mindset is off. What would you say an on money mindset looks like?
An on money mindset or a positive relationship with your money looks very similar to those that have the negative side, except for you're not worrying about money. You are not stressed. You're not looking at it every day. It is just a part of you, right? So your decisions are going to be more focused on experiences and memories, less about, hey, I only have $5, so I only can do this, right? And that's really the key difference of having that relationship with your money is, one, are you using money as a tool and a way of life, or are you letting money use you as the tool and the way of life?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that happens with anything that you own. I mean, if you own a car, does it own you? If you own a house, does it own you? If you own an investment or a business, does it own you? And really, it comes down to the control mindset that am I in control of this situation, or am I responding to what it's giving me? And I think that's sort of what I'm taking from what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love it. Now, I know one thing that you really hone in on is the differences between men and women and how each of them behave when it comes to money and when it comes to their investment. And I know, you talk about how women are naturally focused on the what ifs that happen in financial decision making. Can you share a story where, somebody used leverage and somebody used tool sets to be able to manage risks, but also stay in control?
Yeah. And I first start with, I work with a lot of women. I was raised by a single mother. So a lot of those triggers I grew up with. So I see it and can recognize it. But one of my best clients, she owns Elizabeth Aaron Designs. She's amazing. She came to me about 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, and was very distraught. Things everywhere, not organized, not knowing how to go forward and move forward. Because when we meet, she always goes, well, what if this happens? What if I die? What if my husband dies? What if my children get hurt? What if we don't make this sale? And it just keeps going on and on and on. And one of the key things I do for all my clients to kind of get those settled down, business owners, they'll never go away. Like that's who we are. But how to settle that down a little bit is to organize everything that you have and look at it basically on one page. And when you go through that, you can see, okay, hey, where we're at from an insurance perspective, we're good. We have 12 months of runway for operating expenses for the business. We're good, right? If something happens to me, I have a staff member who could step in. Is it perfect? No, but they could step in right now. We're good. And it'll start to calm you down a little bit to understand you're way more good, and I use good specifically, than you thought you were. And that was one of the first exercises that we do. And if you go through that exercise and you aren't good, well, then you know where you need to focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many times people just operate and they don't take those steps back to kind of assess and then reassess and then redeploy. And with that, sitting down and looking at those different pillars, I mean, you mentioned things like your insurance. How many times do we actually sit down and review our insurance plans? I'm sure that most people don't, wake up in the morning like, man, I just got to crush my insurance goals today. And that's probably what happens, but somebody's got to do it, and the same thing is succession planning. I mean, most people don't like the idea that there's going to be a time where potentially you need to have a really good succession plan. And it's going to be not when you've planned for it. Most succession planning happens when it's an unplanned situation. And so somebody who's at the helm to help somebody to kind of, make sure that comes to the pole position at some point in the conversation so that it does get looked after and is a holistic framework, I think is really important for people to have as a tool set to be able to become the person that they need to be to support those people around them. Because when there's a pivot in the road, you need to be prepared for that.
You do, and you have to have strategies for it, right? And us as a single person running a business or even our own family lives, that's too much. It's too much. It'll get you bogged down. It'll get you focused on those things. And then where are you with your joy? Where are you within your own business? You're not doing the things or the reason you started it, right? Or the reason you had a family, because you're stuck behind the scenes dealing with all of those what if scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know the other thing you talk about is, when people go into a room and, they're going to an investment seminar or they're going into a leadership seminar, and then a lot of time, often they feel out of place. And I know you talk about this quite a bit about women, minorities who feel out of place when they go to financial spaces. How can they turn that discomfort into leverage and turn that into becoming an advocate for themselves and to give them that independence and the agency to assert themselves in those spaces?
Yeah, it's not easy. Okay, it still happens to me. I'll tell everyone that. I still go into rooms. I'm like, wow, I am the only Black guy here, or I'm one of 4 out of 500. You'll never get rid of that feeling. It is always going to be there. But how do you utilize that is the important piece. And how I think through that, and I'll use me as the example, is when I go into those rooms, I go, I am representing this demographic. I'm not representing myself. This isn't about me. It's about those who I can help because they're not in this room and they're really hard to get into those rooms. So if I'm in that room, I need to represent them and I need to get as much knowledge out of whoever's in that room as possible so I can take it back, create the content, spit it to whoever needs to hear it so that they can hear it from someone that they, honestly, people look at color regardless when they first look at content. And if it's, a black man and there's black people out there wanting to listen, they're going to listen. So I better come with something that's going to be able to help them. And the best way to do that is to go into those rooms going, I am getting as much out of this as I can for those people. Because if you don't, and I've done it before, you go in there and it's all about you. Well, that shell we talked about earlier, I'm going to go into that shell. I'm not going to learn. I'm not going to want to communicate because I feel that way.
I see that. It's funny because when you talk about color, and I don't know how this is going to come together, but we were doing a puzzle this weekend and, it was like a 500-piece puzzle or whatever. But the puzzle was a black and white puzzle. Like it just had lines and there was no color to it. So it was just drawing. And then the whole goal was you were going to put the puzzle together and then you had to color it afterwards. And so it was a very unique situation to work in an environment without color.
Yeah.
And because color provides context. And so when you're thinking about ideas, you always think about the color being added. And what we're talking about in this situation is that you're going in there, bringing the color, so to speak, into the environment, but you're pulling things out afterwards. And it was just something that first came to my mind. And I thought it's interesting when you think about ideas and how color matters when we look at ideas because it provides context. And so I think it's interesting to think about that it is, while sometimes we don't think about it, like even I come from Canada and we're, renowned from saying like, it doesn't matter, it's color's not a thing, but maybe it is. And maybe we just don't know it.
It absolutely is. But the bigger issue, in my opinion, in both of our societies, probably around the world, is the socioeconomic divide between rich and poor and the middle class. That's more divisive. That's more uncomfortable than any type of race conversation. I believe that's the force multiplier, if you will, is going to be that socioeconomic divide. And so those that don't have money are all going to feel very similar when they walk into a room like that, go to a bank, talk to an advisor, a planner, you name it. They're going to have a certain set of feelings regardless over someone who's in the middle class or, upper class.
Absolutely. If I walk into the bank and then Morgan Freeman walks into the bank, I think he's going to get a better service than I do.
Yeah.
And it's not because necessarily the money, but it's because of his voice. I mean, let's face it, that guy wins on all fronts.
Yes, he does.
But, that's true. Like the socioeconomic divide that happens is specifically around money. And you started the conversation with talking about that is the deepest, most personal thing that people want to talk about is their money. But it's also the thing that, because it's probably one of the things people are judged the most by is their money. Is that, you look at a sheik in the Middle East. I mean, that person who's got billions, I mean, that person's treated fairly well wherever they go, versus the person who lives on the street in Dubai, comes to, North America and is working as a carpenter somewhere, as a CAD doing cash jobs, treated very differently. And so the big divide that happens across anywhere in the world is an economic. Yeah, no, I definitely think that. Now, I want to get back to the idea of delegation. And because this right here, I think is such a hard thing for people to resonate with. And I deal with this all the time where you have in a business, you've got, the life cycle of a business owner. You've got the hobbypreneur, the person who's just kind of doing the side hustle. And then they turn into the solopreneur and, they want to do everything themselves because nobody does it better than them. And I'm the best. Nobody does it better than me. But then once they realize is that that's not scalable and that's that you can't create a legacy out of that. You can't create a future out of that. You've just bought yourself a job. So then they go through that process of hiring people and, the hire people. The first thing they do is like, I'm going to hire people to do the things I don't want to do. And that's a great first step. But I think where they get into the next step, and this is where you get into true scaling and true leadership, is hiring people that are better than you. And they do things better than, and I'm talking the big jobs. This is your CFO. This is your CMO. This is your president of the company. This is your board of directors. These are the people that you're hiring on who really have the same or equal authority in their sphere in the space. And so when you talk about delegating financial responsibilities, it's a huge hurdle for people I mean, they fear of losing control. I know what it's like when I've hired bad accountants in the past and how painful that can be, especially when you're dealing with, taxes and that sort of thing. How do you help, I know you specifically focus on females and minority business owners stay in the driver's seat, but also benefit from that expert guidance?
Well, we got to start with the mindset, right? So we got to get past that. We got to get them understanding. And I usually work with people who have gone to, the hobpreneur, as you say, to the solopreneur who's like, okay, too many hats, right? It's when you're at that moment is when it's time, right? Because before that, you're just not mentally ready. But once you're at that point, then we can start to delegate and peel those things off. And so we first come in and we look at it from an organizational overview, personal and business. And I really ask them, what brings you the most joy? What brings you the most joy of what you do in your life, what you do in your business? Okay. We're going to do everything else. You're going to focus on that. And that is very enlightening because it allows them to say no. It allows them to not have to do something, right? And that is the first step that we have to accomplish, is whatever that may be. It might be sales that you're really good at. It might be operations, HR. You might be the CFO. Whatever your lane is, we need you to have the energy for that and not looking at everything else. So once we can establish that, then we can either fill in those parts or hire those parts. And we do it over sort of journey, if you will, because if we don't and we go too fast, they'll feel like they're out of control. They're spinning out of control and they have no control. When realistically, legally, and all those things, all business owners do, unless they give away more than 51%, of course. And so we want to make sure, hey, you're good, but also we're on the right side of them in their right hand going, you go focus on that. We always have your back and we're here to support. That first step allows them to get over that first hurdle of, oh, no, I have to delegate these things and I'm better than everyone else.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is when you're delegating, it doesn't just mean you're closing your eyes and hoping everything's good. When you're delegating, there's typically key performance indicators that are put in place. There's measurement criteria for what defines success. And so that when those decisions are being made on their behalf, they know that the right decision is being made because they can see the outcomes happening, and then they can pivot if required.
Yeah. And them taking a back seat allows them to see that easier, right? It's more visually seen when you are not in it and you're back off, right? The 30,000 foot view, whatever you want to use as an analogy. But when you're not knee deep in it and you're able to step back, that becomes clearer. Those KPIs are a lot easier to see. It is a lot easier to judge people and move them in positions or fire them or whatever you need to do when you're not knee deep in it and you're actually seeing it from above. And that's what we allow them to do. We give them the ability to say, yeah, I'm going to do that, as opposed to, I can't do it, right? I can't trust anybody. I can't do this. We got to get that word out of their mouth as fast as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it. If you think about you're a parent and you're raising your kids versus you're the grandma and you're providing guidance. And in this situation, what they're doing is they're, in essence, kind of becoming the grandma of their own business. Not saying that women become old by doing business with you, but the rapid aging in it that happens.
It happens.
But what happens is it frees them up from the daily minutia. I've seen this happen so many times where you have a family and the husband and the wife are falling to pieces. And why they're falling to pieces, because what they're doing is they're always arguing on who's taking the kid here, who's taking the kid there, who's making lunches, who's doing the laundry, who's doing this. Then they finally bend and they hire a nanny. And not only does that save them time that they can focus on growing their business, I can guarantee the hours that are saved on doing minutia, because you're not building a relationship by doing their laundry. You're not building a relationship with your kid by making their bed. You're not, those things aren't add values to the relationship with your kids. So the nanny can help with that. And it also saves you because you're not getting a divorce, because now you're better communicating. Maybe you can have more date nights and all these other things. So you can actually scale your relationship. You can scale so many other things because you're taking away this. And what I see is in this situation that a lot of the stuff that you're looking at are things that have to be taken care of. They're not minutia, but they have to be taken care of. And as people scale up in their business, they have to scale up the things that they have to be able to give away.
Absolutely. But Steve, this is the question we always get, but it costs money, right? I don't see me spending $1,000 on someone to hire them and getting $1,500 in the next month out of them, right? I don't see that. I don't really see that happening. What's true? You're not going to see a dollar for dollar type of return. What you're going to see or feel, more importantly, is more time and more freedom and less on your plate, because we're all humans. We only can take on so much, and we only have so much energy every day in our brain. And if
Yeah,
you're
see, I
burning
would disagree with you completely.
really,
Because I personally think that, the poor, they spend time for money and the wealthy spend money for time. And I see that if you're buying time back, they're immediately seeing a return on their money. And so saying that they're not going to get a 50 cents back on the dollar, I disagree, because anytime you can buy your time back, you're getting an enormous amount of savings. And I
yes.
can guarantee if they're spending the money on anything that they're outsourcing, if they're in that situation that they're ready to do it, the savings are already there.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you in that regard. But most people don't feel that way. They want to see, hey, just like an investment, I want to see a 10% return, and I want to see it on the first of the month. I'm talking about actual dollar changing. Now, what you're talking about is the feeling, and absolutely they're getting a better return. They just have to have that mindset. So those that have triggered that are going to see it and feel it immediately. Those that are listening that haven't got to that stage are going to be fighting that right now. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what they need to see and what they need to feel is that time freedom, because then they can scale. Then they have more capacity, and then it takes off from there.
Absolutely. And I think, if they take the mindset of the Pareto principle, which is, what will happen is many times you look at your day and you fill your day with just stuff rather than starting off your day in purpose. When you start off your day in purpose and you look at the tasks that you have that day and you're saying, okay, how many of these support my one main goal for the day? And if they don't, you take them off the table. And if you can find somebody else to do it, now you can spend more time focusing on the things that are going to have the highest impact. And every time that I do a task personally, I figure out, is this the last time that I have to do this task? Because if it is, and I found somebody else to do it, then I've succeeded. If I have to do this task again, I really hope it's a high value task. I really hope it's a high value task, because, and I've got to succeed at doing that high value task, or I've got to find somebody else to do it. And so every day as you go through it, you're going to figure out if it's a high value task, are you successful at doing that high value task? Then keep on doing it. If it's a high value task and you're not, find somebody else to do it, and you'll accelerate so much faster.
And by value, I want to put in there that it's not always a value in terms of dollars. It might be a value in terms of what brings you happiness and joy, or you just like doing. So those thinking like, hey, value is always about money. It's not. It's not. It's about what do you enjoy doing too. So that's what I want to fill that in for you there a little bit, Steve, is the fact that like value comes from different parts. It doesn't always have to be because it brings me the most money for my business.
Well, I was at jiu-jitsu this weekend at a tournament, and one of the ladies in our comp team, she joined our comp team when she turned 53. She started jiu-jitsu when she was 52. And being part of the journey to help her go from 52 to 53 to competing to winning silver at a tournament, and just seeing the joy that brought her, that was number one. But also bringing my daughter to then watch her compete, to see what a strong woman can do, that's value number two. And if I didn't have a business that was successful enough to give me the time to be able to not only focus on training, but focus on coaching and focus on going to the tournaments to support other people, I wouldn't be able to do those things. And I can only do the successful things in my business because I was able to outsource, so I could be part of this woman's journey.
And that's very well put, because that return that you got out of that is, I mean, you can't put a dollar figure to that. You just can't. And that's where we want to get everyone to, right? The ability to do those things, but it starts with delegating and being able to outsource. And usually you're going to do that before you feel like you can't.
So what would you give as an advice for somebody listening who is saying, I want to just start in the process of delegating. I'm not ready to commit to anything with anybody, but I just need to figure out, how do I start delegating some key tasks? So what can they do to A, get their mindset right, and B, start the process of delegating?
Let's start with what you just talked about. And that is, when you're doing that task, is this something that I have to repeatedly do forever? And how much time does that take? Okay. So start with those, with whatever task it is. It could be your books. It could be making sales calls. I don't care, but value that yourself and figure that part out. The next piece is start somewhere small, right? Start with hiring a bookkeeper. Those are probably going to be your lowest entry in, is hire an outsourced bookkeeper and figure out how that process works, that they do their books every month. And then start to feel, okay, if paying them $450 to do it Well, how did that do? What did that do? How much time did that save me? All right. It saved you 6 to 10 hours. Well, guess what? That is 6 to 10 hours now that's back into your pocket to focus on something else. And I will guarantee you, and I don't like using that term a lot, once you start doing that once or twice, you're going to start to figure out, okay, I need to hire for this. I need to hire for that. And then it just kind of gets the ball rolling with that.
Now, how did they then take that baseline and now go to the big leagues, where we've now gotten used to putting out the things that we think that we love doing? We keep those, putting out the things that we think are menial and below us, so to speak, put those off to other people. Now, how do we convert that and put in the things that are above us and outsource that to other people?
That's a difficult one, right? That's a very good question, because now you're saying, I need to bring someone in who's better than me. And you as a person have to recognize that, you're not the best person in the world, right? There is going to be people better than you. And that's where I believe, whether you want to do it from a mentor-mentee relationship, someone who's better in as a partnership around the country because you've gone to conferences, or hiring some type of coach, wealth advisor, modern family office to come in and start to challenge you and pushing you to be better and to lift you up, then connecting you there. So that's how I would do it. That's how I do it personally as well. I have mentors. I have other relationships and colleagues that I go to them and they pound me with questions and try to make me better. And then when I get to that point, okay, cool, I can hire that and someone can take this higher than I can go, and I can stay in my lane and do what I do while I'm learning from someone else, even if it's inside your own business. Because guess what? You're still the owner. You still own it. It is still yours. Just because someone comes in and is operating it doesn't mean you lose that control or power.
Well, that's where agency is so important. I mean, if you retain the agency to yourself, but what you're doing is you're releasing bits of control to other people, and they might be better than you completely at that one thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're better than you at everything. I mean, maybe they are. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's when I go to jiu-jitsu, I know there's people who are better than me that everywhere on the mat, and I'm okay with that because I'm going to learn from that person. And I'm going to hope that one day I'm going to find that one thing that I'll crush them. But, but generally speaking, yeah, like there's going to be people that are better than you, but I'm okay with that. I think once you get comfortable, I think in your own skin, I think you get comfortable, that yes, we are all massively imperfect people doing massively imperfect things, but we're going to keep on moving massively forward. I think, you're going to become so much more comfortable with who you are. And that allows you to give you that freedom of choice to be able to say, I'm going to bring people in that are better than I don't need to feed my ego. I'd rather feed my bank account, better feed my results, rather feed whatever it is that I'm looking for than just the ego. Because the ego, that thing's always hungry and you never get it fully fed.
Amen to that. And you got to take that risk. You're a business owner. You've already taken the risk. What else is there? And you're going to fail. You're going to have to probably choose a couple people to fill in some of these gaps. And it might be turnover every now and again. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you want this to be a legacy, you want to scale it, you want your exit the way you want it, you've got to be able to replace yourself. Otherwise, it is just a normal 9-to-5 job. There's no difference. And I stress that to all business owners when they first start. Think about what your exit strategy is going to be when you first start. That way you can always be working towards that. Because if you get to the end of the day, 20, 30 years down the road, you want to retire and it's just you or a couple staff, but everything has to run through you, the value of your business is not what you think it is. Because I can't come in there and buy it from you, because I would have to somehow figure out and train someone to do your business, as opposed to if you had someone hired and you're out of it, now that's a business someone can buy.
Yeah, I saw this one meme come up on Instagram where it showed, the self-employed Christmas party. And it was a dude standing at the bar by himself. And it's like, if that's your business, it's not sellable. Unless you own patents. Like, there's one guy I do know, he owns a bunch of patents and like all he does would have to sell the royalty rights to those patents and you make a killing. So yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, if it's an operating business and you're operating in a way of what a normal practice would look like, if it's just you are definitely, you are not a sellable business. You need to have systems, you need to have models, and most importantly, you need people to implement those. Now, I have a question for you around, let's really hit the I'd say the elephant in the room, but I got to talk about the mammoth in the room.
There you go.
Where did the name Black Mammoth come from? Talk to me.
So I had staff back then, right? In 2019, 2020, we were transitioning to the Modern Family Office. I've got partners out of Houston with Centric Advisors. They're amazing people, but I wanted to do this Modern Family Office thing. And in our world, there's compliance and regulations. So we needed to split off, but I wanted it to be something very bold and not like Hall Financial Services or Hall Modern Family Office Wealth Management, blah blah blah. Right? I don't like the name behind everything. I want it to be able to stand alone brand. And so I tasked my staff with, hey, I want Black in the name because Black is bold, it is beautiful, and from a financial perspective, we want to be in the Black. And so he took it to his brother, who is an artist in Nashville, and he did research and figured all this stuff out. And he said, Mammoth. And I was like, okay, talk to me. He's like, mammoths would lead all others to prosperity and protect them on their journey. And I was like, and then he said Black Mammoth, obviously for that reason. And it just all aligned with what we do. We stabilize, we transcend, and we allow you to go on your wealth journey side by side, and we protect you and lead you way there. So it all just aligned very, very well. And then when we came out with the logo, I was like, I like that. That's pretty dope looking. So that's our story to the name.
I like it. I like it. Now, the only thing that I find coy about it is it's Black Mammoth, but the mammoth is actually white.
Yeah, we have two logos. We inverse them every now and again. I like the black background better, which is funny, but that logos.
I like it. I think it was a bold, and I was like, back then. So I got hit by that. And then I was like, Modern Family Office. And so, I mean, today has been fantastic because I've learned, not only in our conversation before, but now just really what a modern family office is, because I've never actually, to be honest, ever heard the term before. I mean, always knowing family office, so knowing that that's the end game is that you get your family office, that's going to carry you on in your legacy with your kids and everything going forward. But having that alternative, which is saying there's that middle ground that you don't need to get to the, hundreds of millions and billions before you can start to build this up, that there's that middle play where you can look at, no, this is something that's accessible. And, and it seems like, not to shamelessly plug, but it seems like really financially pretty low band to get into it. It's, you don't need, billions to start to invest this way and to really free up your time.
Correct. You don't. Our services start at $500 a month, go all the way to $9,500 plus. So there's a way for you. Will you get all the services? No, but I mean, that's, again, it's all scalable into what fits you. And I believe that is what's changing our industry the most is we're no longer saying you have to have a minimum of whatever to work with us. We're going to meet you where you're at and then grow with you as we go on this journey. And that's what's beautiful about it is it's designed to be a concierge. It's designed to be flexible and complex at the same time for who you are, because no one person has the same financial path as the other. It's kind of like a thumbprint. They're different because we all have different things going on in our lives. And that's what's so beautiful about it.
Now, if somebody wanted to reach you, and I know you've got your podcast, you've got that going, so that's pretty exciting. As a podcaster, obviously I'm somebody who's big into the belief that a podcast is an important way for people to get their message out. And so let's talk a little bit about your podcast, and let's talk about how to reach you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Podcast, No BS Wealth. It's been around for about 4 years now. Its whole design is literally to bring no bullshit, transparency, wealth conversations. From business owners to experts in the industry to just me chatting about it as well. But the problem in most of our industries when we talk about money is there's not that transparent stuff. It's always some big term that we throw out there and not really like, what does it mean? How does it affect you? And we address all those issues. We really do. And then at the end of the year, we always do a 12 days of giving series from the 13th to the 24th. We bring on a guest and we hammer in an actual personal story. And it allows people to understand that they're not alone in this journey of wealth and there's resources out there for you. And then that just couples into what we do at Black Mammoth, which you can find me, Stoy Hall, personally, like everywhere. I'm on every social media platform possible. Black Mammoth, you can go to blackmammoth.com, again, all over the social medias. Same thing with No BS Wealth. We're out there. And the reason we're out there so much, although it seems like a lot, is because we want to meet you where you're at. So that way we can partner with you there and help guide you on this journey as you go forward.
Amazing. I love it. And then you've also got your the website for the Black Mammoth as well. That's a good spot to go. Yeah, man, I really enjoy the conversation. I love the insight. I love the idea around, really honing in on a group of people, honing on women, honing on minorities, and really helping them understand that, the space of wealth is for them as much as it is for everybody else. And you're there to help them on their journey, make them feel included in the room and really, be a part of their success. And I think that's awesome. I love it.
Appreciate it. And I always ask everyone who's listening one thing at the end of every episode I'm ever on, including my own, and that is reach out, communicate. We don't know where you're at, and you don't know where you're at unless you start to communicate. That's whether it's DMing us, liking, commenting, sharing, not because of the algorithm, but because you really, truly have something that you want answered. That's what we're here for. So please reach out. Both me, all my resources on all of our pages, we're here for you. So go ahead and reach out.
Beautiful, man. I love it. And guys, this is the money. This is the mindset. This is the mentoring podcast. We'll see you on the next one.